seconds. The link to the advanced packet was sent out in an email by Steve earlier this week. Also a link to the draft long-range plan. Most of the items for the meeting we won't bring up on the screen. We'll assume that you have the advanced packet or a copy of the paper packet to work with in front of you. So we'll refer to the page numbers in the PDF for reference. And the agenda this week isn't terribly heavy compared to some of the previous meetings. So we are going to try and work through this without a recess and expect to be done before 11 o'clock. As always, we ask that you mute your mics when they're not in use, that you introduce yourself when giving a motion or a second or asking a question. And I guess a couple of other housekeeping notes. Due to staffing changes, FHWA has shuffled their team assignments. So where we were previously joined by Matt Smoker, we will be joined at future meetings by Gene Peroshniak. He wasn't able to join us today. He had a conflicting meeting with HATS MPO. So we'll look for him to join us starting at the September meeting. If there are no questions on any of those, we'll move on to item B. That's the public forum. Is there anyone logged on to the call today for the purposes of providing comment on an item not included in the agenda?
Hey, Jim, this is Kerry Mullins, PennDOT Central Office. Just want to let you know that Mark Schultz called me a little bit ago. He's working on something that came up in the district, so he may be a little bit late. He's going to try to join at some point.
Okay. All right. I appreciate the heads up for that. Thanks, Kerry. All right. If there's nothing else that we'd consider under that item, we'll move on to item C, and that's the approval of the May 21st, 2021 MPO meeting minutes. Those begin on page 3 of the packet. If you've had a chance to review those, are there any changes or additions to the minutes that should be considered before they're adopted? All right, then hearing none, is there someone who'd like to make a motion that the minutes will be accepted as presented?
Steve Phillips makes motion.
Thank you, Steve, for the motion. Is there a second?
Justin Scabry, second.
Justin, thank you for the second. Any further questions or comments? Then hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed to adopting the minutes as presented, please signify by saying nay. And is there anyone who wishes to abstain? All right, then the minutes are adopted as presented. Thank you, everyone. That brings us around into the administrative modifications and amendments, and I guess we'll shift these around just a little bit to give Mr. Schultz a couple of extra minutes to log on. So jumping ahead to District 3, that starts on page 11 of the advanced packet, and we have an amendment proposed to the TIP. It's a bridge preservation project. It adds $250,000 in federal funds to apply epoxy treatments as a preservation treatment to 8 state bridges in Union and Snyder counties. This requires an amendment since it adds a new project to the TIP using federal funding. Are there any questions for Chris King about the amendment? Then hearing none, can we have a motion to accept the amendment as presented?
John Del Vecchio, I so motion.
All right, John, thank you.
I'll second.
Lincoln, thank you for the second. Are there any questions or further discussion on the amendment to the TIP? Hearing none, then all those in favor of adopting the amendment as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 If there's anyone opposed to accepting the amendment as presented, please signify by saying nay. And is there anyone that wishes to abstain? All right, then the amendment is adopted as presented. Thank you. On page 12, there are two administrative actions for District 3. The first one adds funds for the concrete patching project at the intersection of routes 15 and 45 in Lewisburg. And the second one pulls utility phase funding from 4 bridge projects and returns it to the line item. If you watch the tip really closely, you'll notice that we tend to program route numbers for some of the pre-construction phases, the utility, the right-of-way. And in this case, we didn't need the full funding amount, so we're pushing it back into the line item for use in other projects. The last change adds a PE phase to look at wetland funding for a project on Dreisbach Church Road, South 45 in Union County, just to allow for delineation. So with that quick overview of the administrative actions, are there any questions for those 3 changes for Mr. King? All right, then hearing none, can we have a motion to accept the administrative actions as presented?
John Delvecchio, I so move.
John, thanks for the motion. Is there a second?
Lincoln, I'll second that.
Lincoln, thanks for the second. Is there any further questions or discussion on the administrative actions? All right, then hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the administrative actions as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 If there are any opposed, please signify by saying nay. And is there anyone that wishes to abstain? All right, then the administrative actions for District 2 are accepted as presented. All right, I don't see that Mr. Schultz has jumped on. Can at least start these and we can go through the overview, and if there are any questions, we can table the action and move on in the agenda. But the administrative actions proposed for District 2 start on page 10. The first action is for emergency repairs to the covered bridge on SR 2023 over Mahantango Creek. That's between Juniata and Snyder County. The PennDOT owns the covered bridge. It was struck by an oversized vehicle in May, did considerable damage to the overhead timbers. They are looking at a let date in early 2022 for the repairs and trying to do emergency repairs to reopen the bridge for traffic in the interim. Brad, I don't know if they've actually succeeded in that or if the damage is significant enough that they're just going to push that off for the more general work.
Jim, if I could comment on that, I got notice that yesterday that the bridge was in fact opened up yesterday.
Okay.
So kudos to them for doing what they could do so quickly.
Outstanding. I know they've been working with the maintenance crew, so I'm glad that they could get that and get it reopened. I know we've had some inquiries from some of the businesses affected by that too. So terrific. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
The second action pushes a little bit of funding to an ITS project. This would install a DMS on westbound Interstate 80 that's right at the exit 185 interchange as you're about to go down into the rock cut. This message sign would be tied into an RWIS radio or weather station, and also into the traffic monitoring data source they use from RIDIS at the Traffic Management Center. So it would provide warnings at this 185 interchange at the top of that downgrade in the event that there's a crash or a weather-related event further on. It's on an accelerated design schedule to try and get it done before the coming winter, and getting this programmed is just the result of a considerable effort in the parts of Mr. Schultz and Mr. Prestash in District 2 to advance this. So are there any questions about those two changes? The discussion for Mr. Schultz once he's able to log on?
I just have a question with the new warning signs. Is that going to be just on the westbound or on the westbound and the eastbound side? You said coming into the rock cut. Are you talking about going west?
Yeah, it's at the top going
At
down.
the top? Okay.
It's part of the response to the fatality
Yeah,
during last winter, and I guess
Yep.
that's the direction she was headed. So the
yeah.
idea is that if something similar would happen before it's even called into EMS, you'd start seeing the warning come up on the message sign.
Right.
Already a warning sign eastbound at the base of the rock cut. So from PennDOT's point of view, they're filling in the gap.
Okay, sounds good. I would make a motion to accept the District 2 administrative or tip, whatever these are. I don't know.
Administrative actions, great.
Yes.
Is there a second then?
I'll second, Jim. It's Brad.
Brad, thanks for the second. Are there any questions or further discussion on this? Then all those in favor of accepting them as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to accepting them as presented, please signify by saying nay. And is there anyone who wishes to abstain? Okay, then the administrative actions are accepted as presented. Thank you, everyone. That brings us up to item E. This would generally be an update on the CSVT. We're passing over that since Mr. Rank is not available for today, and since it's been such a short time since our last update in May, hasn't been time for any new developments on the project since then. It moves us forward then into the Unified Planning Work Program update. So the staff report starts on page 15 of your packet. And then I do have a few highlights to call out from here. First off, at the last meeting, we shared a proposed budget change with you. We are working through the approvals process with PennDOT. They've accepted the change to the UPWP, and we're now working on processing the notice to proceed, trying to get that in place before the start of the fiscal year. We did hold after that meeting a coordination call with the PennDOT districts on the new UPWP, the one that will take effect starting on July 1st, 2022. I think we had good discussion on that. The outcome of that would be the draft UPWP, and that's included in your packet starting on page 31. So you can get an idea of what we're looking at. At the last meeting, we shared the scopes for 2 studies to be submitted for funding through the PennDOT Connects program. Since the last meeting, those are included in the packet on 23 and 27. Since the last meeting, we did share those with one of the consultants that we work with on the open-end agreement to make a few changes. We've also shared the Hogan Boulevard project with District 2 to get some input from their safety and bike ped coordinator. Based on the amount of feedback generated, we're going to submit those, and we're going to consider the Hogan Boulevard project the higher priority, but we do look to submit them both. My only caveat on this is that our UPWPs are separate work orders assigned under a 6-year master agreement. And that master agreement expires on June 30th of next year, 2022. And we're starting to get at the point in the calendar where we're close enough to that if PennDOT Central Office would take maybe 2 or 3 months to look at this and go through the review and approval process, we're probably in a position where we'd be waiting to start that on July 1st of next year, rather than trying to start it now and make sure that we finish it by June 30th of next year. So we're on the bubble with respect to scheduling, but we do expect to submit those coming out of this meeting with a few comments from the district included. Hopefully you've had the chance to review these. If you have any concerns, any additions, anything that you think that we're missing on this, please bring that up either in this discussion or in an email after the meeting so that we're including your input as we send these in. And both of these are driven by issues that came up either reviewing the long range plan or in the bridge prioritization meetings So I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention, and this is just us turning this through the process and trying to address the issues that were raised. We are also working with PennDOT on an update to the regional operations plan. If you've been a member since 2018, you'll remember that we updated the last one back in December of 2018. And this is a plan that covers ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems, or Traffic Systems Management and Operations projects. Things like the variable message boards, the weather stations, the highway advisory radio. They're basically technology applications to make sure we're getting the most possible benefit out of the built highway capacity. We did a very brief update. They didn't hold nearly as many meetings this time around as they did in the 2017-2018 round. But as staff, we reviewed the priorities, reviewed the text, we reviewed the projects. They gave us an opportunity to submit new projects. And what we did for that is we largely drew out of the studies and reports that have been completed in the 2 or 3 years since the ROP was last adopted. So we added a couple of projects related to the Danville area transportation study, to some of the signal and operations issues we've seen in Middleburg over in Snyder County. And loosely related to that is the Clinton County project that was just included as administrative action. It was fast tracked coming through this, but it's touching on that overall regional operations plan. So we wanted to bring that to your attention. We'll plan to bring a summary of that plan and the update to the September meeting for adoption, which means we'll be sharing it with you a couple weeks ahead of time to give you plenty of time to review it and get comfortable with it. Another note is just looking at it that with the recent appointments of Mr. Schultz and Mr. Peroshniak, we're now up to 3 new members since we did our last member orientation session. So what we're thinking is that we should work to schedule another one. And in the last round, we opened that up to current members as well. And a few of you were able to attend, and the result was some very good discussion about what it is we do here and how that works. So we will look to identify a date later in the summer that works for the new members, possibly in the early fall, and we will invite the current members to participate in that as your interest and schedule dictates. So just to let you know that's coming, and you are certainly welcome to attend. We are continuing to work on the CSVT special impact study with the Watts MPO. We are starting to come close to a presentable product. So there will be a steering committee meeting to look at some of the findings for this in mid-July. And then we're planning for an open house and a public officials briefing in mid-September. And then that cues this up to be presented to the MPO for approval at either the September or November MPO meetings. So we're starting to queue a couple of things up to bring to you for approval in that September meeting. We are working on our first follow-up session for the Danville area transportation study. One of the things we called for in implementation was an annual meeting with some of the stakeholders to talk about where we were with respect to the recommendations, if we were ready to start looking for funding or start putting some of those things in place. That has been scheduled for July 15th. I believe some of the calendar invite information is out, and Steve is just starting to work on the agendas and other supporting information. If you have comments or questions on that, please reach out to him or I. There is a full listing of the meetings attended in the staff report. One of them was the meeting with Kelly Township regarding their safety and signal projects. So I just wanted to say a couple of thank yous here. One was to District 3, because this is something that came up during the Snyder and Union County prioritization meetings, and we thought it was a terrific idea. And then the second was just to say thank you to Sean over at Union County for coordinating the meeting and making it happen. And if you weren't involved in the discussion, the very short point of it was that Kelly Township had gotten partial funding, just a portion of what they asked for, to do a couple of safety and signal projects related to the Route 15 corridor and the Hospital Road JPM Drive intersection. And PennDOT had been seeing very hopeful signs that they would be able to receive additional funding if they just resubmitted those projects. And that's not usually the message that we get from PennDOT. So we wanted to make sure we were getting that input directly out to the municipality. Sean brought them together so that you got all the players in the room. I think the input was very well received. And I think as a result, they're a little bit closer to getting the resources they need to put those solutions into place. So just thanks to everyone involved with that. At the last meeting, we shared with you that staff had submitted 2 earmark requests for the highway reauthorization bill. Those were the Ferensville Road, or SR 1001 project in Clinton County, and the SR 104 bridge between Snyder and Juniata counties. We did receive notification in early June that both projects were included in the version of reauthorization that passed out of committee. So there's a long way to go before reauthorization is complete, and there are a couple places where those earmarks could fall out along the way, but we're really glad to see the projects clear the first bar. What we're hearing on the webinars is that there is still the potential for the Senate bill to include an earmark process, and we'll keep you updated if we hear of an opportunity on that side of things. Another item I want to make sure we hit today was we usually let this report go with a very light touch on the gas co-op activities, but we just wanted to call out here that the co-op is in the final approval stages for a project that will supply liquefied natural gas to an indoor agricultural operation in Perry County. So if you've been playing along, you'll realize that what we're talking about is the gas that is drilled in Clinton County will be trucked and used in Perry County instead of being sold for export. And that was what the original vision of those efforts were. So I just wanted to take a moment and give a nod to Don and his team at the co-op. It's a very involved board. They're on the edge of another significant milestone coming on top of the already completed Center Hall project. And we're just thrilled to see that happening. And they do have a couple more projects in the wings. Some of you are on both boards. You see the work that Don puts into this, but I just wanted to say congratulations. This is a well-earned success, and here's hoping that it's just the beginning. At this point, Steve, do you want to walk us through an update for the transportation alternative set aside and the HOP permit summary, and if there's any particular comments on the draft UPWP?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I'll hit the work program here just first. As Jim mentioned, that's in the packet, the draft fiscal year 2022 to 2024 work program for the MPO. As you have a chance, please go ahead and review that. Some yellow highlights there indicate revised text from the current version of our work program. Some new focus areas and things coming out of the statewide guidance group. New activities, plans, studies we think will be worked on, and some deliverables there. So feel free to refer to that at your convenience. And then if you have any ideas, if there's certain tasks that you want to see covered, feel free to forward those off to us before the September meeting, when we'll have a more revised version of the work program in the packet for your consideration. Likewise, if there's any studies or plans you're going to be working on from July 1 of 2022 to June 30th of 2024, feel free to let us know. We can give those due deference within the work program there, things that you want MPO staff to touch, be involved in. We show a couple local studies there, some things that PennDOT will be working on as well at the district level that could benefit from MPO participation. So as you have a chance, just give us those ideas, and then if there's candidate supplemental special studies that you would like to see pursued, forward those off to us as well. But come September, we'll have a more refined version of that, and more final guidance coming from the statewide level, probably early July, and then numbers that we can attach to the budget as well. That's blank currently, but we'll work through that process, and we'll do the coordination with the transit operators in the region and also the Federal Transit Administration But as Jim mentioned, we've already had advanced coordination with PennDOT, central office districts, and Federal Highway Administration, and they were comfortable with the current framework of the work program. So look forward to your additional ideas and things you want to see the MPO staff engaged on in the coming years there. So thanks for taking a look at that. On alternatives, transportation alternatives, as Jim mentioned, hopefully you all saw the email that I had sent out on June 14th, but we were able to announce that the 2021 program was formally unveiled by PennDOT, and the program guidance was finalized. There was a webinar for project sponsors held on Wednesday of this week. So if you did not hit that and you want to, there should be a recording and a Q&A summary document coming out that will be posted to the PennDOT TA set aside website in the near future. But the actual application site opens on Monday of next week, June 28th. So interested applicants can start entering their data there on the new application format and get that saved, and can be working through the other things they need to with their engineers or local stakeholders on their projects. A new thing this year is that there'll be a pre-application required that must be submitted by August 16th. And then the pertinent district, PennDOT district staff will review that. They'll get with us at the MPO level and schedule a meeting with the sponsor just to go through the details there. If there's any kind of questionable things in terms of eligibility or the design or anything else that can come out in those meetings and make it more effective application. Move forward, and then the full application deadline is October 15th. And again, we're looking, PennDOT's projecting $18 million to be available for any area applicants across the state. And as Jim mentioned, with the federal legislation, if there's passage of a new transportation bill to reauthorize the federal spending, there could be maybe another 18 million perhaps available for additional award there. And PennDOT will look to identify all these worthy applicants as part of this round to use the designated 18 million and potentially the other additional $18 million. So that'll all be from this round of solicitations. So yeah, hopefully you hit the webinar. If not, refer to that recording, but it touched on some of the sweeping changes to the online application. Most of the other guidance document carryover remains the same, but the new application format and the pre-application and that kind of workflow is different this go around. And a focus, as usual, is on projects can be delivered in a timely fashion. So anything that's awarded this round, the intention is that they could be ready to be advertised for construction by August 31 of 2023. So hopefully, applicants have a good deal of advanced work already underway, and that won't be an issue with meeting that deadline. And hopefully the approvals, from PennDOT and the governor's office come out early part of 2022 to support that. So that's the update on the new round. We're anticipating the 2018 round milestones start on page 21. And I'll just mention briefly here that all those projects have been advertised or completed or actively in construction except for one. So only one out of the 7 still needs to be advertised and complete all the design process. And the only other real update there on that front was just that the notice to proceed was given for the Lewisburg Borough Bull Run Greenway Phase 1 project on May 19th. And we didn't have that information in the former packet, but that's the update on those. So we'll just open it to the floor if there's any questions about those from the 2018 round or any questions about the new round of alternatives program funding. Okay, yeah, if not, then feel free to coordinate with us afterward. And I know the members do a great job coordinating with the municipalities. And again, as part of that June 14th email, we did at least touch several municipalities, counties, school districts, transit operators that are eligible, and a few nonprofit groups that have applied in the past as well. So we tried to get that out there, nearly 200 contacts with our direct communication. And as things come in, we'll certainly work with the sponsors, and we'll try to ensure that they're coordinating with you as the MPO members as well. And look forward to participating with the district on any of those early meetings before full applications go in. I think that was all I have on this front probably then, Jim.
Okay, if there are no questions about the UPWP or the staff report, then that brings us up to item F, the adoption of the 2021 SEDA COG Long Range Transportation Plan. Don, if you'd walk us through that, please.
Okay, is everyone able to see things?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. And Jim, thanks for your comments on the gas projects. Everybody needs a hobby. We're all focused on transportation. And I want to point out too that Brad Kerstetter and Katie De Silva are on the natural gas board and have provided great service there. So a lot of people involved in that too, and some overlap, but thank you for all that. This has been a really challenging time to try to put a long-range transportation plan together for obvious reasons because of COVID especially, but otherwise. And at the end of the few slides that I want to run through today, I'll have a few more comments about things and where we are right now and what the future might look like. But we'll start and have a look at where we've been. We're at the end of the process now. And if you look at the top of the chart, you can see that our beginning of this project was very nicely timed for the beginning of the high effects from COVID. So many things had to be done differently this time, a lot of virtual work. Things that are COVID related or at least indirectly related have provided a lot of challenges for this. And I think we've come through with a really good product here at the end. Since we last talked to you, we've had our virtual public meeting, the public comment period. We have a few final comments that I'll bring up very quickly shortly. And we're asking for adoption of the final plan today within our time frame to be able to do it. So we're pleased to be where we are right now, and we're looking forward to moving on from the plan stage and looking at taking the plan and what the implementation means. This was the development phase with some of the initial dates. Back in November, we circulated a first draft for all of you to look at, got some very good comments back and made a lot of changes to the document. We had a lot of pieces that weren't finished or that were on in the future at that point that we've accomplished and actions that we've performed. In May, we had a second review made available for the members. Starting May 24th, we opened the public comment period for 30 days that ended on June 22nd. We conducted an online public meeting on June 3rd and made some further edits and comments to the plan as it hopefully will be released. So again, today we're presenting it to you for adoption. There's still the opportunity for some final revisions. We're making a few final, what I'll call minor edits based on some of the comments that we've received during the public period, and those should be in the final version. So just to review some of the changes that we've had since the first time we circulated this back to you in November. I mentioned some of them. We also had the agency coordination meeting in March. We had a public outreach in various ways. We had an online survey that was posted that we had over 200 responses for. The human services agencies were involved through interviews. Catherine primarily worked on the environmental justice aspect of the report, which is included as an appendix. We've done some significant revisions to the public transit section with help from Michael Baker team. The performance measures section has been greatly expanded and I think clarified very well. The projects section, the asset management and discretionary projects, if you remember those, that's been expanded, and we really amplified and presented the concept of corridors of opportunity and what that means and what things will be associated with that going forward. There's also been updates thanks to PennDOT from the CSVT section in the report. We brought that up to current status. There's been fiscal projections updated because of the changing target on that and what's happening at the federal and state levels. You've had a chance, hopefully, to see the GIS Hub website and our executive summary as presented through the story map. And the very last section that has been completed then is description of implementation actions, what it looks like going forward. So that's the complete plan. I think we're about at 300 pages with it, and obviously a lot of effort and work went into it. I'd like to make a comment about the public outreach and comments resolution, since those were collected here since the last meeting. So we pretty much use the same kind of tracking spreadsheet that was employed last time. I'll show you that in a minute. So we've logged and tracked comments. There essentially were only 3 individuals or groups that submitted written or verbal comments. There are 8 distinct comments. So there's multiple comments that were submitted by one group. And we'll be making minor changes to address those comments into the document. Some will be addressed more in post-implementation actions. And we felt that was the best way to address those at this point. And certainly not expecting you to be able to read this document here, but to show you briefly what this tracking spreadsheet looks like. We'll be not only wrapping up what's in there as documented, but what the following actions might be with that. Some of them are comments or edits that are actually made to the document. We had one comment during the public meeting from Commissioner Angela Harding from Clinton County about multimodal study going on up there, particularly with rail trails. That's something to keep in mind as follow-ups. We had several comments from Rabbit Transit. There will be a map of the routes there that will be included in the document as well for designated service. And we had comments from Levon Poteet, who has been heavily involved in the Lewisburg area in monitoring transportation traffic conditions there. The concern with that is what might happen when the CSVT opens, especially with freight traffic, truck traffic going through town. So that's a continuing item for evaluation, monitoring, and potential action. So that's the summary of what we have received at this point. So the approval steps are, we don't feel there are any major changes that really are needed to the document coming out of the public comment period. We don't think that there's a second comment period that's required. So we're to the point today where we would like to ask for final adoption. I'd like to make a few summary comments as well. I mentioned that this was a very challenging project, not only because of COVID, but otherwise. As Jim alluded to, the transportation reauthorization is under consideration right now. There's been a tremendous amount of new proposals, infrastructure bill, many other possibilities that the way that transportation projects are funded at all levels are going to undergo a major change. And it remains to be seen exactly how that will shake out. That provides a major challenge going forward about being flexible and agile to address these potential projects that come out of the LRTP. So it's something that requires a lot of monitoring. Things may change in the playing field. We're hoping that this still provides a good blueprint to be able to mesh with those changes. There's a lot of new technology that is coming out. It's amazing what's happened in the last 5 years since the last LRTP, and things are changing very rapidly right now in many cases. Everyone knows about electric vehicles. That's one example, but there are many other things that we've tried to cite and will be following going forward through the MPO program. The CSVT itself is at a major point of starting to change things in 2022. After that, many aspects of the transportation operations in the region, there will be a lot of far-reaching effects as to what happens. We have a lot of, we put a lot of emphasis on, I guess, what I'll just call sustainable approach or sustainable tools. And the whole goal is to try to take the LRTP and have it become more of a living, breathing process rather than a document. We were able to compare that back to the previous LRTP done in 2016. And Jim was very strong on being able to come up with a different approach this time, so that implementation projects would have a lot better chance of happening. I think we've done that in several ways. One of them is the viability analysis to look at potential projects. We spent a lot of time on this and came up with some good ratings, based on practical items for looking at projects and how reasonable it might be to implement them. So coming out of that is where the discretionary projects essentially were generated, and we were able to look at those. Taking the discretionary projects and the major asset management projects, mainly from PennDOT, then were folded into the creation of the corridors of opportunity. And working with Michael Baker's team, we were able to put, I think, a good treatment of that together, not only for the document, but graphically, which can be viewed and will continue to be able to be viewed through the GIS site. I think is an effective way of being able to look where things are and how they may be developing. Along with that, on the data side, the GIS hub-based website is something we want to keep going. We like how the story map was used not only for the executive summary, but we think there's a lot of opportunities to be able to continue to use that type of tool for our transportation work. With the continuing development of the data repository at PennDOT, that again fits very well with our plans, we think, for sharing data, being able to keep data updated and continue things on for transportation operations, and then form the foundation when the next LRTP is done. So I think that the bottom line, if there is one, is that we have a good set of projects to be able to look at, hopefully better success than in the past at getting projects to implementation. There's certainly a wider range of projects this time, not just traditional, highway projects or bridge projects, but a lot of active transportation projects made our list. And we directed a lot more attention to that this time around, I think. So I believe that there is a better prospect for implementation of important projects that will have local support and participation, and will create a well-rounded group of things that can be implemented. So I'd just like to conclude in thanking people for your time and participation in this, starting with the MPO members, but also the steering committee. It was very helpful in keeping our focus on important aspects of things. I'd like to give a little tip of the cap to the Michael Baker team. I know some of them are on the call today. They've been very invaluable and a good partner to work with, especially in special aspects of the plan, like performance measures. And we, I think, are at a good place to go forward and integrate the results out of the long-range transportation plan with the rest of the MPO business and how that will be developed from this point forward. So I'll stop there. Again, thank you to everybody. We hope we have a good product to deliver to you today. And I'll pitch it back to Jim if he has any final comments or would like to add anything.
I don't have too many comments, Don. Just I want to recognize the level of effort that you and Catherine and Steve have put into bringing this to completion. It's been a heavy lift for staff. We've been very grateful for the help of Michael Baker and help of our district partners and the steering committee, but a lot of this has been on your shoulders. So thank you. And I think you're queued up and ready to ask them for adoption.
Okay. And also, I do want to mention that a lot of this is due to Jim's vision on transportation in the region, and that really is the framework we've been able to follow. I think it's been a great one. So I would ask at this point if we can have a motion for final adoption of the long-range transportation plan from members.
Make a motion to adopt the final long-range transportation plan. Eric Staley, Columbia County.
I'll second that. Lincoln Kaufman.
Okay. Jim, do you want to call for the vote, or should I? Or
Go ahead, Don, if there are no questions.
all right. All those in favor of approval of the long-range transportation plan, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or any abstentions? All right. Thank you again, everyone, so much. You'll still be seeing me, even though the natural gas is my sort of hobby. we'll have a lot of good things to work on for transportation. So again, appreciate your help.
All right, thanks again, Don. That brings us up to item G on the agenda, the return to in-person and hybrid MPO meetings. Since our last meeting, the state restrictions on public gatherings and meetings have been lifted, and we expect the mask mandate to be lifted next week. SEDA COG staff are currently working on a hybrid schedule through at least September 1st. PennDOT expects to return to the office in late summer. We'd like your input on how comfortable you are coming back into the office for MPO meetings, whether that's your preference, whether you'd like to continue in a hybrid format or a virtual only. So there is a short survey that we're going to send to you. We included it on page 68 of your packet, just to give you a chance to react to it. If there are any questions we should be asking that we're missing, we'd love for you to bring them up at this point in time. If there aren't any additional questions or things you think we should be checking in on, then we'll send this out after the meeting and we'll share the results of this as we start getting close to the September meeting, so that we'll be giving you a little bit of time to adjust to this and understand what's coming up. We have watched some of the other programs. The GRA has been running hybrid meetings using off-site meeting spaces. They've been very grateful for the use of the Union County Government Center. And Wednesday, the SEDA COG board was able to meet on site at SEDA COG using our boardroom and conduct the hybrid meetings. So we think the technology is there that we can support it and run the meeting effectively. Now we want to check in with you about your comfort level. Any discussion or any questions about this? Anything we should add to the survey? All right, well then if anything does come to mind, please send it via email. Otherwise, we'll look to send this out most likely today or Monday, and we'll share the results of you coming up on the September meeting. Steve, that brings us up to item H, if you'd walk us through the 12-year program public participation summary.
Great, thank you, Jim. I'll just touch base here. One thing I failed to mention in my summary of the TA set aside, I did want to mention, just let you know well in advance that we're looking at scheduling a review committee meeting. And then if you've been along in the past, each round of the TA set aside, normally we try and recruit the volunteers and the MPO voting members that want to take a deeper dive into those applications and have a Q&A process with the project sponsors, have them come in and present their project in more detail. And if there's anything you just want to get more information on or ferret out in that process, we're going to look to do that in November, realizing that we'll probably get the applications late October. So if you want to look at your calendars, those of you that would want to be on that committee, or if you're associated as an applicant, if you want to put a hold on your calendars, November 16 is what we're looking at for scheduling that, and a potential fallback date of November 18th in case we have a lot of applications this time and maybe want to spread those oral presentations and interviews over 2 days. So again, November 16, November 18, and that will allow us to send the review committee's recommendations off to the full MPO at our November 19th meeting for approval. And that'll get us well ahead of the timeline of when the ratings and recommendations have to go off to PennDOT. So just wanted to give you that preview. And if you can put a hold on your calendars at all, if those days are available, it'd be before Thanksgiving at least, and hopefully you can do that. Great. And I see John's already interested. Thank you for being interested in volunteering on that review committee. We really appreciate the time you put into that and pouring over those applications and having a good discussion with them when they come in to present. Now on the State Transportation Commission results, we mentioned at our last MPO meeting that the survey period from March to April that the state had for the 2023 12-year program was currently being reviewed, and some of the summary documents and the electronic mapping were being prepared, and those results did come out since we last met. So we have in the packet on page 71 just the regional results. You can see out of the nearly 2,500 concerns that were raised on the mapping exercise, 109 of those We're in the 8-county SEDA COG MPO region. You can see the dots there. You can go out to the website as well and click on these and get more details. You can even download the Excel documents and work with them that way if you want, or even do your own mapping of them. But the majority of those were biking and walking related concerns or issues. You can see the 68 total biking, walking. Some of those were sidewalks, crosswalks, trail interconnections or needs. And then we had 25 roadway, whether they're pavement related issues or traffic signal safety oriented issues as well. And then it really falls off after that point to some bridge at 7, some transit issues raised at 7 as well. And then 1 freight and 1 concern raised that was already addressed by a 12-year program project that was already on the books. So that's your kind of summary of those. And we're pleased with that. If you take a look at it on a comparable basis from the last round for the 2021 12-year program, pretty similar. That's on page 73 there of the packet. And you can see we had 129 survey participants for the current one. And back in 2019 for the 2021 program, we had 144 survey participants, and the mapping issues were essentially the same, 109 versus 110. So we're seeing good engagement from the public on hitting these. A lot are concentrated in the Lewisburg area, certainly with the activities that they have there with their groups and organizations and stakeholders. So you see a high concentration along the 11, 15, and 45 corridors there for bicycle pedestrian issues. But we certainly get a lot more input than we had in former years when this was more of a formal hearing that was held and sessions that were conducted across the state. This gives people easy access and the opportunity to register their concerns. So we're pleased with that. We can use our process to filter and analyze a little bit further for the 2023 program that's underway and being developed. And just wanted to put it out there for your consideration. And Jim brought up there in the PDF some of the survey demographics and the PDF document as well. But if you want to refer to the website, we just encourage you to do that and take a look at those points. You can see what's being raised. If you haven't heard from your public or citizens on some of these issues, it might be helpful to do so. And that's all part of the development here of the 12-year program, the TIP, like we mentioned, and some of the financial guidance and the general and procedural guidance is forthcoming from PennDOT and the various stakeholders and work groups that participate on that. So we're going to look to receive that probably, we've seen early versions, but probably after next week, a finalized version of those to support this program, and continued discussions with the district staff on assign the projects, and we can follow up with the members as needed on the projects you've already raised to concerns through the discussions we've held. But toward the later part of this year, then we'll be having a draft tip probably in December, shared with the PennDOT Program Center. Early next year, we'll continue the analysis and revising the draft, and then doing the public comment opportunities in the early spring. And come June of 2022 is when we'll look to adopt the 2023 TIP document. So just kind of a look ahead there. And Catherine's going to give us an update on some things related to the local bridge prioritization process. Unless there's any questions, we'll then turn it over to Catherine for that update and some things to be looking out for on surveying and prioritizing local bridges.
All right, thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of brief updates here. First, for the local bridge process, we have officially made it through all of the meetings, and the notes have been sent out to everyone from anyone who attended those. Coming out of this meeting, I will be sending all of you a package of survey materials where you'll be asked to evaluate each of the bridges you chose as a priority through a SurveyMonkey form. And I will also send the information I've acquired so far just in data that we have access to. So you can validate all of that information and provide a little bit of a quality check process here. And that will be coming out very, very shortly here for you. And will keep us on track for submitting that come the fall. I think that's pretty much all of my update for the local bridge. Does anybody have any question on the local bridge process at this time? All right. And then my other update is very brief for the Active Transportation Committee. We have not met since the last MPO meeting, so I don't have a ton to update you on. I think a few of the work groups have been meeting in the meantime, but our next meeting will be held on August 18th. I think for now, that is going to stay virtual for that meeting, and then we will look ahead to working towards that hybrid or in-person model as soon as we can for the fall meetings. So if no one has any questions for that either, I will pass it back to Jim, I believe.
Catherine, and this is Katie. I have, I guess, an announcement. Gabe Caprio, who's been representing Clinton County on your committee, has taken a job with the city of Allentown, and he starts there mid-July. His last day is July 2nd here. So we're going to have to figure out somebody to represent Clinton County for you on your committee.
That sounds good. We'll
I
be
know that
sad to
there's-
see Gabe go.
Yeah, I know. He's great. There are two other guys, both Lock Haven University people, that go with him to meetings. So maybe one of them would consent to be the, the permanent member. Is that all right?
I believe so. I think it's up to you for your
Okay.
decision who you're going to appoint from Clinton County. So Ruben or Todd, I believe, are those two guys would be welcome too if they obviously accept it. So you can
Right.
just let me know and we'll be happy to make that adjustment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gabe is going to be the stormwater education manager for the city of Allentown.
All right. Well, good luck to Gabe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, it brings us up to agenda item K, the member forum. The usual links and summaries, items of interest are included starting on page 75. We did include a press release on page 77. This is related to the proposal to raise the threshold for metropolitan statistical areas from 50,000 to 100,000. The release identifies a Senate bill prohibiting a change. We just shared this as a follow-up to the comments that we provided as staff supporting that they maintain the current threshold of 50,000 rather than making that change. So the actual release asks people to reach out to their senators to support the proposed bill, and we'll leave that to you whether that rises to something that you would want to take action on or not. We just want to make sure we're sharing the information with you. We did have one other item come in a little bit late for the packet. It's a call for projects for the 5310 program. They are looking for projects to improve mobility for senior citizens or persons with disabilities, and it's open to state or local government authorities, transportation service providers, and private nonprofit organizations. So if you have trouble finding that funding information, please reach out to our staff and we can share that with you. So that concludes the items we have on the agenda. I'd like to open it up at this time if there's anyone on the call that wants to provide an update on their organization or on other items of interest that they're aware of. All right, then hearing none, if there's nothing on your minds that you really want to bring up and discuss with the group, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Lincoln, thank you for the motion. Is there a second out there?
Second, Eric Staley.
Eric, thank you for the second. As of 10:30 a.m., we will consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody.